This is AV SuperFriends Perspectives, a collection of interviews, discussions, and presentations from conferences, trade shows, and events that just don't fit either of the other two shows. Some are long, some are short, but they'll all have valuable insights, useful information, or just good conversation with thought leaders and subject matter experts. And now, the AV SuperFriends.
All right. Well, we are still here at Northwest Met, Chris. We're still going live. And we have a guest, Marc Yakubisin.
Yep.
All right. We got Marc's with Diversified. And we wanted to bring Marc in to talk a little bit about integrators and working with higher education and that riddle that may exist between some schools and outside firms. And we've all had some varying take on this. Some folks are full on integration, everything all the time. And some of us use and partner with firms like Diversified to do some other parts and pieces. But we wanted to bring Marc in to kind of talk a little bit about maybe how does the integrators see that partnership and kind of what are the sweet spots? What can we do to kind of help that and to kind of strengthen those relationships? Marc, what do you have to say about this? What are you doing?
Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to join you guys and have this conversation. Appreciate it, and always great working with you all. And I think that also ties back to the first step of what an integrator is looking for in partnering with universities, and that's the relationship piece of understanding kind of what foundationally is important. Mm-hmm. Like whether it's, hey, we have large teams that could do the install, whether design work is needed, different aspects of it. And that's kind of the groundwork. I think anybody going in guns blazing thinking that we're going to partner up and we've got design resources, we have all these processes, all these things that are going to make it successful, aren't going to be successful unless you take the time to really understand the needs of the institution.
Gotcha. And so I'll speak a little bit about how maybe OSU has worked with Diversified in the past. And we've had a unique partnership is that we'll use Diversified to just offload some of our stuff when we're just too busy. And I think we've gone a long way. I've given you complete kind of as-builds, things where you've had teams come out and just build exactly on our design to kind of offload some of that labor stuff. But then we were recently talking about, that may ramp up due to kind of structural cable things. And you said Diversified had recently had a structured cable division coming in that may be providing some more of those services. I think Chris and I talked about that. And we see a world where a lot of that stuff could be offloaded into the integration field. Chris, is that kind of what you're thinking too?
Yeah, I mean, it's I guess the analogy I use all the time, it's like you can do your own sheetrock and mudding in your house, and it'll be okay, but it'll take you forever. And you can hire a crew, and they'll come in, they'll do an entire building in a day. Yeah. So having structured cable available for that, those guys are just absolute pros. They tear through buildings, and they punch on everything. It's clean, it's done, and you know it's going to work, it's certified, and you're good to go. And it really makes life easier from the college or university perspective. So I think that's a real value add from an integration perspective. So I guess maybe question related to that is, what are your thoughts on working with universities and colleges who either do all, or not all, but do the vast majority of their own integration or want to do their own integration? Or how's that relationship go as far as where you as the integrator or the structured cable provider or whatever, how does that kind of come together?
Yeah, we always look at it that we're here to support and serve your best interest. And I think every integrator has a product or a project management process and how they ideally see a design build or an RFP, different things go through. And the way that we kind of look at it is we have to be flexible with that. Mm-hmm. You have to be able to not say this is going to be something that we're going to be able to run the same process each time, because every university is different. And kind of like the partnership with OSU is we don't necessarily need to go in and work from the ground up on programming, design, things like that, because there's standards in place. And so that is a slight deviation from a normal process that integrators have. And then when Marc and I were talking about kind of the structured cabling portion of it, a lot of AV integrators can do cable pulling, do those processes, but it's not necessarily the wheelhouse. So as labor can change, the process changes on how structured cabling goes. I'm fortunate to have a whole team division that focuses on that, so we can offer that as an AV integrator using kind of a structured cabling process. So it's very helpful, and I think that's the way a lot of schools are going, where they don't have the certified electricians to be able to do that, and they need the support.
And I think looking at Diversified, and you've kind of broken it down into these compartmentalized chunks within the organization. And Diversified's big. You guys are a huge company. You're not a small new kid on the block, but I think you're able to a la carte. And maybe some people think that when you are working with an integrator, it's an all or not scenario. And kind of you've already described just now in the last couple of minutes about, we will use just a sliver or an aspect of it, right? You're there to help us in that relationship, but we know that if we're going to get in trouble and it's like, we get slammed into the president and provost just dream up 20 new buildings tomorrow, make a bunch of money fall from the heavens, we're not going to be able to do all that, right? And we know like we can a la carte services as needed from an integrator. And I'm not sure a lot of universities look at it that way. They think that it's everything or nothing.
It's an all or nothing proposition.
And so I think I'm not sure even all integrators look at it that way. And I think it's been unique that Diversified has helped us to kind of say, okay, well, maybe we're just going to build, or maybe we're going to just pull a cable, or we're going to need programming team. But we are able to pull those different elements off. But has it always been that way, or is that a new approach, or what do you think?
I think it's I'll say more of a new approach than the reason that it is throughout the years, if it's not a full-on project from design all the way through commissioning, there's a lot of times where it's like, we just need the extra labor, we need people on site, we already have everything, we just need people putting that in. And it's hard for a lot of AV integrators to go from their standard process to a T&M model and just pay for labor individually. So we've looked at it at a couple different ways where when it's necessary, it's a full project, especially when we engage when it becomes like a capital project or anything like that. But then there are times where Mark and Don and the whole team have everything ready to go, programs, it's all go. They just need the help getting everything in. But a T&M doesn't quite cover it because we still need a project manager. AV integrators still want to have a project manager, and people making sure that this gets seen all the way through and to sign off and that everything is the way it needs to be. So kind of the middle ground, at least the way I look at it, is service level agreements, where then you could say, okay, this is the going amount of time we expect for a room, for this type of room to be completed, and then this is how much it would go for. And that way it still has the ability to facilitate all the different steps in the integration process for AV integrators without having to go the full realm of things. I mean, yeah, project managers are absolutely necessary. Project coordinators are absolutely necessary to make sure that we deliver the final thing and don't leave anybody hanging. But at the same time, there has to be that balance, because when a room is 3 times the labor that you'd be able to do it internally, it makes it difficult. And that's, I think, the biggest struggle that AV integrators have.
It's that business pressure, right? You have to balance the total cost on all these pieces, and it becomes a little more delicate. But I think that's also where universities look at it. It's like, okay, they're now looking at a lot of the same pressures, right? And so we have the mythical time monster. We're trying to get all these things done, and we can't readily scale and surge, right? And so being able to have good partnerships with outside integration firms allows us to kind of get that surge capacity, right? Where and it didn't happen overnight. Like we didn't just pick up a phone and call Mark. We've had a relationship with Diversified for years and years and years. And I would, if you're hearing this, like, don't be afraid of your integrators. Like welcome the conversation. We do talk about it a lot of times that there are troubles and things like that happen, but if you're all on the same page, you can create a good relationship, and you can create an SLA where it works for you, where it can help you as an organization if you're just buried, right? Because we're all just going to be buried. And so use it as an opportunity to kind of maybe even learn something different. Like what is a different outside voice? How do they look at this problem? What that can possibly bring to the table? So
well, I want to flip that question real quick. So say, now I know you guys have a working relationship, you've already built that, but say I'm a new school, I'm I don't know, some other university in Oregon, call you guys up. What can I, as a university or college, do better when I'm reaching out to an integrator, or I'm engaging an integrator to come on and assist with a project? Now, whether that's a full engineer, design, build, install, commission, or that's just time and materials, what can I do better to be prepared or to provide what you need? I mean, what sort of things do you find that a lot of schools, because they just don't do it very often, aren't prepared for when they start working with an integrator?
Yeah, and I think that goes to, I see it a lot more in community colleges where it's a lot smaller groups, is the first kind of step that is the most helpful is being willing to discuss how your infrastructure, how your teams work currently. And then whoever you're discussing with, whether it's just an account manager from an AV integrator, a a director, anything like that, really get to be willing to open up and communicate what the real needs are, and be willing to be open about that. I mean, that's kind of ambiguous to say, but it really is about the relationship, and being willing to have some vulnerabilities to the uncomfortable of, like, we can't support this, and having trust that the relationship's going to make it where you don't feel like you're now below the integrator and that they have the power. Because I think every integrator is speaking to relationships. That's what we all want. I don't think it's the wild west of going and just trying in there and saying, hey, what can we do for each other, or what can I do for you, and vice versa. It's all relationship based. And so what that really comes down to is, like, hey, if you have a small team, tell us that. Then we can see, hey, with other clients, these are our experiences that have similar things, and that's where the conversation really opens up. So I hope that was kind of a better way of answering that.
I thought you were just going to say provide parking, but
And Mark, you recently talked about kind of how Diversified's looking at higher ed as a vertical in there. It may be a little bit different than the past of it just being lumped into that corporate market, and like you are actively looking at like what it means to service higher education, more specific kind of end to end and what that is. And like, can you shed any bit of light on that? A little bit of secret sauce behind the scenes, a little bit.
Yeah, let's see. Like in terms of like what I'm looking at when I'm looking at universities and wanting to work with them. Yeah. I think really the first part is looking at from the two sides of, is the AV integrator just there to provide the services or a complete project, or are they also able to do programming by itself and different levels of services not related to a project? Programming separately from anything else. I have clients that we only just do their programming. But those conversations come up, and then a lot of them it's just equipment only. But being able to say, as an AV integrator, what I'm looking at doing is seeing who in the market is looking for any support in general, and the more options that an AV integrator can offer, the better the relationship. If you go in there and only able to provide a project and not individual parts and pieces like a la carte, whether it's equipment or things like that, it makes it difficult to continue that relationship or really build on that, because you want to be the one stop, but the AV integrator also needs to be able to support those different facets. And so I'm fortunate enough to be in a company that lets me do that.
It's giving you they're empowering you to be flexible.
Yeah.
For the betterment of the relationship that you already have.
There
right?
you go.
And so
couldn't have said it better.
Well, awesome. Well, Mark, I really appreciate the time. We just wanted to keep it kind of just giving people a little bit of a opportunity to speak about how integration firms may view higher education. But if people wanted to reach out to you, get some more information, what's the best way they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, so visit our website, diversifiedus.com. We have a whole list of the markets and ways to contact us. There's a whole reach out to us department, a whole leads department that will basically you put in your information, and somebody in your region can contact you and help you out. And we have a whole higher education vertical group. My director Brad Thomas and Vice President David Burnt, who are also looking forward to progressing the development nationally for how Diversified focuses on higher education.
I was going to ask, is that a new team that's kind of been put together recently?
Yeah, so back several years ago, the group that I'm part of was CompView, right. And then it was part of the acquisition, and so we had a West Coast focus with what we call an inside-outside model. Our inside sales team, which I'm a part of, we have groups that specifically cover Washington, Idaho, Montana, Utah, basically the West Coast all the way down through California. And that's Brad Thomas's group. And basically we focus on primarily the product side of things. And that group has basically been showing a great way of how integrators can offer outside sales services and integration, but then also be able to support sides from both ends. It's a lot for one person to take on, so we have separate groups of it, and that allows us to actually have dedicated customer service and things like that. So I'm not the person that does all the support on the back end. I have a whole team that takes care of that for me, so I can focus on the relationship. So not a lot of integrators do that, and maybe I just gave away some of the secrets.
So on your team anyway, do you work almost exclusively with colleges and universities? Is that kind of your role? Or
yeah.
Okay. And is that something that Diversified is building out at every location, that they're, as you guys are expanding, is there a team basically to do that? So if somebody's listening to this from North Carolina or Texas, is there going to be a local Diversified office who has a college and university, a higher ed team?
Higher ed focus team, absolutely.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
It's good to know. I personally was not aware of that.
That's what we try to do. Is we're trying to get the word out. It's not a lot of focus specifically on that vertical, but fortunately we are a wide enough and deep enough company where we can cover all that and be focused and not too broad with that market.
Very cool.
Awesome. Well, cool, Mark. Well, thanks for stopping in, and hopefully you can bring lots more folks to come by the Diversified booth and hope you enjoyed the rest of your Northwest Med experience here.
Certainly will. Thank you guys for the time, and I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks.
Well, that wraps up another episode of AV SuperFriends Perspectives. If you have a perspective to share, you can contact us with questions, topic ideas, or general complaints at mailbag@avsuperfriends.com.
Nice work, everyone. Sharp broadcast. Really good. Everyone on the floor as well. Really a lot of hustle. I liked it.
The opinions expressed by the AV SuperFriends are solely those of the individuals and do not represent their respective institutions, organizations, companies, or clients.